There's at least 2 drones on site.
Thanks to iFixit for sponsoring this video. Check out their ProTech Toolkit at ifixit.com/Linus. For 3 solid generations, Digital Storm has been making their small form factor gaming computers bigger and bigger for some inexplicable reason. But that all changes today. They're showing off the Medina, the Aventum X, and the Velox X, and those ones are pretty cool, but this is the star of the show. This is the Digital Storm Spark, the kind of small form factor gaming machine that I might have designed after I first laid eyes on mini STX hardware back at Computex last year. So inside this tiny box, like, look at this. This is an Aventum X for scale. Like, come on. Inside this tiny box, you'll find tons of storage expansion. That is 3 M.2 slots and a 2.5-inch drive bay. You will find up to a Core i7 8700K. You will find up to a G.
Hello?
Dude, he's coming from that way.
Nice.
Save the AK. Or not. Don't get too close. Why'd you could have gave me the flashbang. I fucking always buy flashbang.
No, he picked up the Molotov.
Oh. I'll go A.
Flush is long. Oh, I got 1D cat.
GTX 1080 graphics card, up to 32 gigs of RAM, and yes, my friends, that is full custom hardline water cooling with RGB lighting. So they've done a couple of cool things to get that kind of hardware into this form factor. Number one is they have actually worked with Swiftech to design a custom block for the MXM graphics card that is used by this mini STX form factor. Number two is they're using a super compact 92mm radiator up here in the top, as well as one of the smallest pump reservoir combos that I have ever seen up there. And number three is that they've designed their own custom chassis, which by the time this is released in, knock on wood, Q2 of 2018, will have tempered glass for the side panels on both sides. It's Digital Storm, so it's not gonna be cheap. Once it's available, you'll be able to customize not just the color of your coolant, but even the color of the chassis with any one of their great paint jobs. And while it's Digital Storm, so this thing is not gonna be cheap, if you're a gamer on the go and you don't like the laptop paradigm, this looks like a pretty compact option. This video from CES was brought to you guys by iFixit. Yes, my friends, it is courtesy of iFixit and their ProTech toolkit that I am able to cause the usual havoc that I do here at the show, taking apart everyone's prototypes, be they desktops, laptops. Hell, why don't we take apart a monitor this year? I mean, the sky's the limit because it's got everything from pry tools to spudgers to suction cups to their 64-bit driver kit that means that you will never get stumped by a random screw that you just don't have that bit on you right now, as long as you
Now Ruby Riott right on the midsection here of Becky Lynch has been in control here for the last few minutes of this match.
This is a great strategy by Ruby Riott. Remember, weeks ago, it was the Riott Squad that slammed Becky Lynch's torso inside the steel door, which led to, you know...
Shoulders down, and a kick out. And Becky Lynch trying to put away Ruby Riott. And to your point, Graves, was one of the first targets on the Riott Squad.
Rapid fire rights from Becky Lynch.
Look at Lynch firing off and an uppercut. And now Becky, now bouncing Riott to the canvas. This is what Ruby Riott and others are going to have to deal with in the Royal Rumble match.
Well, not to mention all the women from Monday Night Raw. You're talking about Asuka, you're talking about Absolution. I mean, there's a lot more mountains to climb than just in the ring. What about Nia Jax?
Hey, which one did you pick? You flipped back and forth a whole lot last
night. I picked Asuka, and I'm sticking with it, Phillips.
Yeah, till next week.
And Becky went after Riott. There on the ropes, and a stiff kick.
Right back to the ribs. Oh, my goodness.
And Riott, that nasty straight-ahead style.
Ruby Riott thinking here.
She's trying to set up for the Riott kick, but possibly caught here.
Change of plans.
Disarmer.
Ruby Riott got caught thinking. You can't take too much time when you're in the ring with someone as dangerous as Becky Lynch.
Becky Lynch got cinched in and gets the submission here tonight.
Here is your winner by submission, Becky Lynch.
Yo, that's got to feel good for Becky Lynch. That's got to feel great for Becky Lynch, especially with the Royal Rumble right around the corner.
A measure of retaliation here tonight for Becky Lynch on the leader of the Riott Squad.
What's up guys, welcome to today's video. The goal today is to get the SR20 completed and running in the car. Now if you missed yesterday's video, we're at a bit of a standstill because we left the dowel pins that you need to align the head and the head gasket to the block at the machine shop. So we can't really do anything, although we do have a friend that fingers crossed might have some. We're just waiting on him to see if he has them or not. In the meantime though, we are starting to go through the new fuel system. Ever since I had the issue with Nicole's car where it got hydrolocked from a stuck injector, I've maintained pretty close relationship with Dishworks, and they sent me a bunch of stuff so I could redo the fuel system on my car for this next setup. Just to go over kind of everything briefly, we have it all laid out on the table so it'd be really easy to talk about it. I like your little display, Alberto.
Yeah, that's how you gotta do it.
This right here is their DW400 pump. It's made by Bosch, of course it's E85 compatible. It'll outflow a Walbro 450, and apparently I want to say they said you can make like 700 horsepower on this pump or something absurd, so I probably won't ever be needing to upgrade it again after that. I've got a nice new stainless filter that's just going to hook right up to the AN lines, and I also have like a stainless steel filter that is cleanable, which will definitely be nice since I'm running E85 and I want to make sure that there's no clogs or any gunk in the lines. I've been told with side feed injectors it starts to get tricky when you get in the higher CCs in regards to tuning and still getting the car to idle nice. And when you go top feed, there's a lot more options. So these injectors that I have are these are their EV14 1200cc injectors. E85 compatible, very easy to tune with. We sized them based on my power goal of like mid 400s, so I'm guessing they'll probably flow to like 500 horsepower, but don't quote me on that. They also come with a nice little pigtails, so since I didn't get my new harness, I'll just kind of splice this in. That way I have the right connectors for the injectors. And no more stock fuel pressure regulator. We have their DWR 1000 fuel pressure regulator. This will make it way easier to adjust while tuning. And of course, again, it's E85 compatible. So all that stuff should be relatively easy to install. We were gonna do it after we had the motor in, but I think we're gonna do it now since we're just kind of waiting. And I did work a bit more on the bay. I don't remember if last night if I had the battery fitted up yet or not, but I kind of started putting in that sub harness that delivers power to stuff, kind of tucked it behind here, cleaned up some of the connections, and I really wish I had more before shots so you guys could see the comparison, but before there was just this huge mess of wires just all over there. So we're getting there, and I also made a little mount for this fuse box. Not the best thing in the world, but better than it just dangling there like it used to be. So satisfying. Believe it or not, I actually have two identical harnesses right here. So this one on the left is a harness that was in my car with the SR, and then this one on the right is the one from Nicole's car when she had the SR. Originally, I was gonna use my harness because I thought it was in better condition than hers, but when I looked at it a little bit closer, I really don't like that where it connects to the ECU. I've got a bunch of random stuff just kind of spliced in, a bunch of connections, whereas hers is pretty clean. I'm still gonna rewrap a lot of the harness because it could definitely be cleaned up and wound a little bit tighter, but I think this is a better starting point. And on top of that, we already have the sensor wired in for the Apexi, so it's a lot easier to just use this harness in this one, and it's cleaner. My friend did end up finding those head alignment dowel pins, and Schulman saved the day, grabbed them. It was actually my friend Sebastian. You guys have seen his S14 in my videos, I think. It's the S14 with a big turbo SR. But this is what held us up last night. So the reason why these are important, you could get away without using them, but it's really sketchy because it holds the head gasket in place and center as well as when you put the head on. You could kind of line it up by eye, but it's just sketchy.
No move.
Yeah, we don't.
This will keep the head from not moving.
Matt's friends were like, "Oh, you don't need those. You don't need those."
They just told me I was like, "Who said that?"
People.
What kind of friends are those?
No, not good people. Dang, that's calling them out.
Oh no,
you just lost two friends. No, it's okay.
He's gonna kill me.
We're just playing. They were looking out for us. All right, yeah, that's cool. You guys are cool.
Yeah.
Schulman, I don't know about you.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, sure.
Squeeze him in like this. See how he closes?
Mm-hmm.
And then try to get him in there.
All right, so this is the cleaned up harness. Again, it's really hard to tell how much time I put into this when it's on the Swiss Trax floors. I feel like it just makes it look not that nice, but I got it wound way tighter, got all the new electrical tape, everything's all situated. Before it just had a lot of like straggler pieces. If you look at that compared to what used to be in my car, which was this crusty mess, I mean, we're talking a load of a difference. So, I mean, obviously I could probably splice everything up and do nice heat shrink or something crazy with it, but just for the time purpose and actually just still wanting to clean it up, I think it's gonna look way nicer and it's gonna perform great. I didn't film it, but earlier today what I did also was the top of the power steering pump just was super corroded, and you can actually take like a wire brush and you can just keep going at it. You can get it shining nice. Same thing works on the alternator. I already did the front section where you can see it, but I'll do the back just so you can see the difference that it makes. But it doesn't really take very long, and it makes it look so much nicer. So if you compare this area that I just did right there to the black section behind it, it's like night and day. It's almost head time. Just doing one final inspection and cleaning, and we can toss her on. If you guys remember, when it comes to head gaskets, we love the Permatex copper stuff. Alberto, you want to explain why again?
Because it enhances the sealing capability of the gasket, so that way when you have like the water passages or oil passage, it just creates like this little film of added protection to the gasket, and it just lasts longer.
Stuff makes a mess though, so we're going to be spraying it outside instead of in the garage. Little idea we had just to make it kind of look cool is to stick a piece of paper behind the place where it says Apexi, so that'll actually be sticking out of the motor and you'll still be able to see it. So that way it'll kind of have more definition because it's a different color underneath.
Always gotta put a dab on both edges for where the two covers meet, because there's always that little line and oil will seep through there, so you always gotta silicone that. you have to go sideways.
Oh, to get it around the stupid chain tensioner thing?
Yes.
What?
Chain, move, open it. So it goes over this side. There you go.
What's caught on that lid?
Push. Alright, sweet. We're in.
Alright, let's fire up. ARP assembly lube.
It gets thicker with a cold. 30, 60, 90. I'm doing them at 30 first, then 60, and then 90.
Oh, check this out. Look what just came on Amazon Prime. Got a little like battery cable bracket before I had this like crappy looking rubber one. So it's just like a little billet aluminum one. So it'll look a little bit cleaner. Look at that, perfect size.
Oh, yeah. Oh.
Berto's priming the lifters right now. In addition to Nicole's old harness, I'm also utilizing her old transmission since mine's a little damaged. I'm going to CDO9 eventually, but the kit's gonna take probably another couple weeks to develop. So in the meantime, I'm gonna see if I can make another SR trans last. I'll just go easy in the clutch kicks. But the last person RTV'd the shifter plate on, so it's gonna be kind of annoying to get off. Alberto, I think, is starting to do the rocker arms. I'm currently just scraping off this old gasket before I put the other one on. Stupid.
What are you doing?
Putting the cams in place.
Looking
So
good.
I blade the lifters, I put the shims in place and rocker arms, put assembly loop on everything. Now it's time to put the camshaft in. Chain has these 3 links that mark the timing marks. Obviously when you're building a new engine you can do that, but once it rotates and it's lost and you just gotta do it the other way. But with this one, you have this shiny links that mark where the sprockets are gonna line up with. So I already have the one on the crankshaft put on, it's in top dead center, and then this one will line up where I need the camshafts to line up with.
These are the adjustable cam gears that we're gonna be using. It's a shame that you can't see them because they're very pretty. Check it out. Pretty cool, right? So you can actually just adjust where the cam is degreed by using that, which we couldn't do before. I also have a pretty fancy oil plate. That essentially blocks off on the engine. It essentially replaces this thing here so we can have an externally located oil filter. And then I have another little plate thing. Let me see if I can find it. I can't find it, but I'll show you guys later when I can find it. We're not gonna do it immediately anyway. I'm still waiting for my oil cooler from Mishimoto. I ordered it kind of late. So once I get that, I'm gonna redo this whole cooling system. But for now, we'll just kind of use the stock system. Some silicone on the water neck, about to put that on. Gotta use Alberto technique where you kind of like try to make dimes on it. So when you press it in, it gets like an even edge. Time for the pretty intake manifold. Pretty stock intake manifold. So shiny. Time for the fun part. This came out so sick. So Alberto, I know you don't have a wastegate spring for the external wastegate. How do we know which springs to put in it?
Depending on how much boost you want to run.
Martin said to put spring pressure at about a bar.
So it's 14.7 psi.
But how do we know which springs to use? Is there like a diagram somewhere?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
They're color coded, but you lost it. Where's the paper at?
I'm sure I can Google it. So we've actually been utilizing an OEM Nissan SR20 gasket kit that you can actually get from Injuku. The only thing that we really change about it, it comes with this exhaust gasket, and we like to upgrade to an OEM S15 gasket, which Injuku also sells. Without me even saying anything, you can see that this is a metal multi-layer gasket. It's gonna hold up to some abuse. Is this even metal? What's this made out of?
That's like some composite stuff. I forgot what it was. It's like asbestos kind of thing. This holds up boost. That just burns through.
Dang, that fits tight. That's sick. I feel like my bottom mount setup actually might have like stuck out farther. Alberto is trying to figure out how we're gonna run the water lines right now. It's safe to say we found Big Boost a new favorite place because this is the 3rd night in a row we're doing Chinese.
He wanted it and you wanted it too.
Okay.
Well, I mean, I wanted it, but like,
I just agree.
Chinese is really good. It's always the best
His
thing.
decision the first 2 nights in a row. And then it was a mutual decision tonight. He suggested it the first one. I asked for it the second time. And then Matt asked for it. I was like, it was good. I could eat it.
Yeah, everything was close. It was all close too, so I mean, come on.
I at least switched it up and got some sweet and sour chicken. Alberto got some sesame chicken. Nicole got some lemon chicken. She didn't actually want any chicken, but I was like, you know what, you're gonna get some chicken. And then Shulman, what'd you get?
Honey chicken.
Honey chicken. We got all the chickens. We don't discriminate.
There's so many comments about people get on PUBG. You need to get on PUBG.
Alberto yesterday literally put on Chinese music while he ate his Chinese food.
That's not funny.
You really serious?
I don't think that's funny.
No, I just think it's funny.
He's enjoying the culture. He wants to feel the culture
I
while
think
he
it's
eats.
peaceful.
It is. No, it's really nice. It's just funny.
Silence. Give me one space.
Wait, can you put a bite of chicken in your mouth?
I'm say that.
No, don't.
I'll do it.
Alright guys, so I kind of have bad news. The original goal was to get the engine running tonight, which honestly would have been a bit of a stretch anyway, but we now definitely can't because we realized that Radium actually sent us the wrong size injector seat. It's a 25 mil, but we need a 30 mil. I think these might be for like an S15 or something like that. So we're gonna have to wait until tomorrow to see if we can get some because the injectors won't properly seat in these rubber ones. But there are quite a few local shops and people that have Radium setups around here, so we should be able to source some because there's no way they'd be able to ship in time, and I don't believe Injuku keeps them in stock. But I'd say another good goal for tonight would be to just get the engine mounted, maybe even wired up. That way tomorrow morning all we need is these guys and we can get it running, break it in, and shoot for a tune on Tuesday.
Alright, so I'm trying to get the water lines and oil feed lines situated. It's really hard when you're trying to make the lines look good and then also be functional. So they have to like flow good and everything. So like right now, I have this issue where here I can't go straight, so I have to go this way. I can't go down either. So this is the only option that I have with this. Then this one, I already figured it out. I have to run at 45 all the way through the manifold because if I run at 90, it hits against the manifold.
And we are going to put some sort of heat protectant coating
here, and this goes here. The oil field is already figured out. I'm working on getting the angle better, and then I'll have to work on the drain line, which is going to have to go like probably forward a little bit and come all the way around the downpipe and not around the manifold, clearing the wastegate like straight through here. But
it's tricky.
A little bit of a task. At least the lines are getting there.
Yeah, it looks really good.
It'll probably look even better once I'm done with this, but let's see what we got.
Alberto, this wastegate dump tube looks like if it were the right size up here, it'd be pretty easy to just dump into the downpipe. What do you think about that?
Does not compute.
Alberto, what?
Also, there's a problem that the steering shaft's gonna be going through here, so you can run that. It's gonna be in the way.
But
it would be better if you have this. And you do this. Or there's no tube. This is loud like mine.
Alberto wants me so badly.
A tube like this big like mine.
Alberto wants me so badly not to run.
No, wait, I got a better idea. There you go, out the hood, yes.
Alberto wants me so badly to run an external gate, and I want to dump it in the downpipe, but I'm going to give it a chance, just for a big boost. Out the fender!
Oh wait, look perfect, I
What?
got it.
You guys are going to like this. So, I got the OG Starbucks cap, the same one that's gone through my ownership of this car and the previous owner of this car. It used to be the cap for the reservoir. And I'm going to make something to make it work. So, this comes from a little kit that is for like bleeding your coolant. And I'm going to make something happen out of nothing. So, my little invention works. I don't know if I'm too crazy about it. It just doesn't look as clean as I'd like. So I think I'm just gonna end up kind of rigging something up with zip ties like I had in the past, but it was a cool thought. Just not very nice. Kind of annoying more than anything. I'm probably gonna jinx myself by saying this, but I'm pretty stoked that somehow the original Starbucks cap that's been on this car still exists. In case you're new to the channel and you don't get why there's a Starbucks cap in here, the original theme for this car from the original owner was supposed to be a Starbucks Frappuccino. So that's the whole thing with the cream and mocha, if you get it. But trying to keep the theme alive, as I feel like nothing else better represents me than coffee. But loving it. Trying to get that goal of at least getting the engine in the bay. So me and Alberto have been working hard and really not filming that much. He's got all the lines figured out. He had to do some custom bending on the dipstick. Right now he's just tightening down the manifold with that new gasket. Over here, I've been working on wiring again. I got the wire for my subwoofer ran, got it pretty nice and clean down there, going to the distribution block. Still have to wire the distribution block to the battery, but I'm really happy with how that looks. I also wired my boost solenoid for my boost controller. It's kind of just tucked up there with the brake lines and then mounted right down here. I think before it used to be over here more, but because of the manifold we might have some heat issues. So for the time being it's just located there. It's 2:30 a.m. We're tired. I got a lot more done on the bay wiring wise. Alberto, the engine's pretty much ready to go in, right?
Almost. Just gotta degree those cams, install the distributor, and put the clutch and flywheel and match the tranny up, and it's ready to go.
So the whole degree thing is going to be kind of complicated because originally the plan was to drive the car over and have it degreed in the car. It might be easier to just take the engine there and get it degreed, but then comes to the situation of how I get the engine there because my truck's attached to the trailer and I don't want to go unattach the truck from the trailer so I can get this, and I'm trying to make everything simple. So I just got to figure out tomorrow what the easiest way to go about it is, but tomorrow 100% promise you guys we will get it fired up.
Let's do it.
I'm gonna wake up bright and early so I can call and see if I can find those injector seats and figure out the situation with the degreeing. Yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. I know it was a bit chaotic and I probably didn't go into as much detail as I could have, but that's what happens when we're both super focused on getting stuff done with a limited amount of time. Thank you guys for watching. Hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you tomorrow.
I just want that thing to whistle. I just want to hear what it sounds like.
When you said, when you said, when you said that you love me, that you love me, you said, when you said, when you said.
George Lucas could never have known that his space opera would turn into one of the most well-known and profitable movie franchises in history. If he had, the director might have spent a little bit more time filming the original series to make sure some of the more entertaining mistakes were left on the cutting room floor. Luckily, that was not the case, which means fans can spot each and every hard-to-miss error. Even after all these years, Luke Skywalker's big screen adventure still has a few surprises. Here are Screen Rant's 10 Star Wars movie mistakes you missed. Luke's Ghost. It's no secret that some of George Lucas's improvements on the original film weren't popular with fans. But just as many new mistakes seem to slip into new additions. When Luke's aunt and uncle wake up to find him already out searching for R2-D2, there's something off about the shot of the empty homestead. What looks like rolling film is actually a still image, with a ghostly image of Luke visible in one of the doorways. With Skywalker a Force ghost the entire time and a Force film is R2-D2, there's something off about the shot of the empty homestead. What looks like rolling film is actually a still image, with a ghostly image of Luke visible in one of the doorways. With Skywalker, there's something additions. When Luke's onto some of George Lucas's improvements on the original film weren't popular with fans. but just as many new mistakes seem to slip into new additions. When Luke's aunt and uncle wake up to find him already out searching for R2-D2, there's something off about the shot of the empty homestead. What looks like rolling film is actually a still image, with a ghostly image of Luke visible in one of the doorways. Was Skywalker a Force ghost the entire time and fans just never knew? Creepy. Wired lightsabers. The weapons of the Jedi Knights were more than cutting edge, but on set they were actually a clever use of old-fashioned tech. The swords had 3 sides covered in reflective tape, which would rotate to give off a shimmering effect. It worked wonders at the time, except when Obi-Wan and Darth Vader first face off. The white power cord is clearly visible running from the Jedi's saber up his sleeve. Rebel editing. George Lucas didn't have every detail of his story down pat before filming.
A young Jedi named Darth Vader. He betrayed and murdered your father.
Which meant a few scenes had to be edited out or trimmed down in post-production. When Lucas reunited with his friend Biggs before the attack on the Death Star, their commanding officer shows up to meet his newest pilot. The man originally made an offhand comment about knowing Luke's father, but knowing what problems that would cause, Lucas decided to edit it out, obscuring the cut with an unknown person walking in front of the camera. Unfortunately, R2-D2's sudden jump in the background made sure the cut would stand out for all time. Dusty Saber. The sword fighting choreography improved over the course of the series, but in the first movie, actors Alec Guinness and David Prowse took their duel as seriously as possible. Even though they were told constantly not to slam their stun swords together for fear of breaking them, they couldn't hold back. There's supposed to be beams of energy in the movie, but with every hit, it's easy to see clouds of dust flying off. These days, it hopefully just adds to the tension. Colorless droids. The special effects team basically created the entire industry with Star Wars, so some mistakes can be forgiven. These days, we know that if a character is dressed in blue, a green backdrop will be needed to add in effects. In the first movie, that fact slipped by. So with every shot of R2-D2 riding aboard Luke's X-Wing, it's hard to miss his blue paint job suddenly turned black, effectively rendered see-through thanks to the blue screen used by the crew. Luke's lips. George Lucas may add in aliens or boulders wherever he chooses, but what happens if you want to add in a line of dialogue that an actor never even spoke? That's the problem with Luke's arrival on the planet Dagobah. When he explains that he's there to search for Yoda, his extra line,
if he even exists,
wasn't spoken by actor Mark Hamill. The special effects team tried to cheat by altering the darkness of the actor's mouth, but there was just no way to fake it.
if he even exists.
Jedi Knights are apparently gifted ventriloquists. Tipping walkers. No Star Wars fan will forget the adrenaline rush, or the laughter, of seeing a massive Imperial walker brought down with a single rope in the Battle of Hoth. But Luke proves he doesn't need anything but a lightsaber and a thermal detonator to bring one to its knees. It's an impressive stunt, but a little less fantastic when you notice the stick being used to simply push up on one of the walker's back feet to tip it on its side. Familiar asteroid. Every director knows the value of using old or unused footage to make a different scene pop. And the asteroid field of The Empire Strikes Back is famous for including everything from potatoes to old running shoes. But one asteroid is a bit more familiar. Apparently, the effects team decided to repurpose a shot of the Millennium Falcon flying through the field, applying the view from inside the ship's cockpit. but keep an eye on the asteroid flying in from the bottom corner, and you'll notice the unmistakable shape of Han Solo's ship flying by. The effects team managed to blur out the details of the hull, but its barrel roll makes it impossible to miss. What's my line? When the Falcon finds a home in a massive space worm, a tremor sends Princess Leia into the captain's arms.
Captain, being held by you isn't quite enough to get me excited.
It's hard to know how many times the actors had to perform the scene, but Harrison Ford was clearly the first one to get bored. When Carrie Fisher tells her co-star that she's less than excited, Ford silently mouths her entire line along with her. Watch your head. These days, it's rare to see a CG effect or object actually pop through on top of an actor's performance, since attention to detail has never been higher. But back in the early days, layering one effect onto another shot was a time-consuming process. When Darth Vader's shuttle was rendered a little too low on the landing pad of Endor's moon, the mistake was left in. Audiences now get to enjoy seeing Vader's black helmet passing through the nose of his ship on every view.
Nothing more will I teach you today.
Alright, so what do you think of our list? Did we miss any of your favorite errors, goofs, or mistakes in the Star Wars series? Let us know in our comment section, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more videos like this one.
The year is 1977 and George Lucas has just released Star Wars. All those years spent painstakingly creating the effects and fine-tuning his perplexing scripts have been worth it. The film is adored by audiences, has redefined how studios approach the box office, and will go on to be nominated for some serious Academy Awards. Looking back on some of Lucas's early notes, however, make for interesting reading. While there's lots of little things in there that no longer apply to the saga, what's really remarkable is how many of the ideas that would go on to define the less beloved prequels have their roots there. Let's look at some. I'm Ben from What Culture, and here are 8 Star Wars prequel moments George Lucas planned way back in 1977. Number 8. C-3PO was built by a child. How did a child, even an extremely powerful one born by the Force, manage to build a factory-spec protocol droid from scratch? Fans have often justified the move by claiming C-3PO was a mass-produced droid whose remains Anakin found and did up. Except it's not the fans, but Lucas who came up with this solution. In 1977, Lucas said that C-3PO was rebuilt by a young child. Nowhere does it say it was Anakin or Darth Vader, who, remember, were different people at this point in the story, but it's still an oddly specific prediction. As pre-Episode 1 3PO had little influence on the story, much of what Lucas wrote all those years ago about his origins has become canon as the character's backstory. Number 7. The Emperor overthrew the Republic using trade laws. The original notes reveal nothing of the evil Empire's relatively short 25-year timeline, and instead suggest that the Republic had been gone for decades. Ultimately, this was cut short by the prequels to allow for Luke and Leia's birth to coincide with the Empire's, but just because the dates were vague doesn't mean the events were undefined. We can learn the Old Republic was a democratic system and that the future Emperor managed to swing it so he could get re-elected with the backing and influence of major galactic corporations by messing with the trade laws. fun. The rise we're told of is essentially the entire plot of the prequels, minus the whole Sith influence. Yep, those old trade laws that made the Phantom Menace's opening crawl so tedious has its genesis here. Number 6. Darth Vader's past was a mystery. In 1980, everyone learned that a lot of Darth Vader's past was incredibly subjective, but even before the series-defining decision to make him Luke's father, Lucas was keen to play up the character's mysterious past. According to C-3PO, R2-D2 checked the records of everyone on the Death Star when they were there in A New Hope. He tells us that there were detailed files on everyone on board except for Darth Vader, of whom there was no trace. Although in the film he felt partially like Grand Moff Tarkin's lapdog, this is something that points towards his grander power. He's close to the Emperor and far from just another member of staff. As these notes originate in the immediate aftermath of Star Wars' release, this could be the first official trace the story was slowly morphing into that of Darth's life. Number 5. The Rebellion was a splinter of the Senate. A major subplot of Revenge of the Sith that was all but cut from the film but still survives in the deleted scenes dealt with the early seeds of the rebellion in a similar manner. Featuring Padmé conspiring with Bail Organa, Mon Mothma and other future rebels is the motivation for her otherwise out-of-the-blue comment on the Separatists' legitimacy. Interestingly enough, the notes also shed some light on the scope of the rebellion. The group who destroyed the Death Star are described as the militant branch, controversial to the point Bail Organa fell out with his daughter when she joined them, but that sentiment was never explored beyond these notes. Number 4. C-3PO had his memory wiped. Not much can be done about the wise exposition giver Ben, but Lucas had a good stab at explaining why blabbermouth C-3PO didn't know who Vader was by retroactively giving him a memory wipe. Narratively simplistic, it does the job of tying up a loose end that was stupidly created by the prequel's lack of foresight. However, as one of the better written excerpts from Lucas's notes reveal, 3PO was always intended to have a heavily influenced view on the world. Talking about his relationship with R2, Lucas uses the first-person style of these notes to have some fun in suggesting, but not confirming, this idea. Number 3. R2-D2 was originally a ship repair droid. In the original trilogy, astromech droids came across as the galaxy's version of a Swiss Army knife. They can store data, fit perfectly into various designs of space fighters, can access any information port, and even have a periscope. But while R2 developed into something of a three-dimensional character, the original blueprints were always in Lucas's mind. When we first meet R2-D2 in The Phantom Menace, he's a repair droid on a Naboo cruiser, and that's exactly what his primary function was always intended to be. According to 3PO, he is sent to the outside of the ship to fix various systems. It's just one of many examples of Lucas showing really strong understanding of the intricacies of his new universe. Number 2. The Imperial Army was built in secret. Clones have been trying to find their way into Star Wars since the very beginning. A throwaway reference to the Clone Wars was one of fans' few hints at the pre-Empire world, while Boba Fett was originally envisioned as part of a run of genetically produced super soldiers. They finally got their on-screen debut in Attack of the Clones, where this classic sci-fi trope was mixed with the secret army. As was the case with many of the ideas raised in these early summaries, the timeline rejigged to fix other events in made what was originally a clever idea appear daft. The implication in Episode 2 is that these clones eventually become stormtroopers despite the accelerated learning not fitting with that. It's messy, admittedly, but at least the original idea is still clearly present. Number 1. Midichlorians allow Jedi to use the Force. It is said that certain creatures are born with a higher awareness of the Force than humans. Their brains are different. They have more midichlorians in their cells, said George Lucas in 1977. Mentioned in only 2 scenes of The Phantom Menace, then in passing during what should have been a pivotal scene in Revenge of the Sith, the introduction of midichlorians feels like something shoehorned into the final draft of the script, having little impact on the story. Predictably, many die-hard fans found it emblematic of Lucas ruining their childhood, but midichlorians have their roots much further back in the franchise's history, predating the much more accepted Sith Rule of Two and Chosen One prophecy by over 20 years. Hearing it explained matter-of-factly by the younger Lucas, they suddenly make a lot more sense. Midichlorians aren't an attempt to rationally explain the Force and demystify the magic necessarily. They're a simple explanation as to why some people can use the Force and others can't. And that's our list. Make sure you subscribe to the What Culture YouTube channel for more lists like this, and don't forget to visit whatculture.com for daily news and articles. I'm Ben from What Culture, and thanks for watching.
Oh, hello there. I'm billionaire philanthropist, not Bruce Wayne, and as you may have heard, we've actually started up a What Culture Comics channel. Oh, That's Better, where you can go for all the comics lists, all the comics news, and all the comics discussion. So go and subscribe to What Culture Comics for loads of amazing comics coverage.
I'm often billed as What Culture's go-to Star Wars guy, but hey, we're all human, I'm no fountain of knowledge, I get stuff wrong sometimes, but guess what? So do you! With a franchise as far-reaching and long-running as Star Wars, there are plenty of misconceptions, urban legends, and outright falsehoods floating around amongst both the casual viewers, like your Uncle Mike, who isn't even sure which episodes he's seen, and the dorky superfans, like me, I guess. So, listen up and listen good. Next time you hear your friends spouting off some false factoid about Han Solo, you'll be able to shut them up with the hard-hitting reality of the situation, and they'll be really, really impressed and definitely won't think you're a sad know-it-all. Talking of which, I'm Peter from WhatCulture.com, and here are 10 Star Wars facts that everyone gets wrong. Number 10. The Stormtroopers had terrible aim in A New Hope. Except, of course, they didn't. Now, first off, I have mentioned in the past that I firmly back the notion of stormtroopers being terrible shots in general, and I stand by that today. However, many people don't realise that in the Death Star sequences of A New Hope, they're missing deliberately. This is even referenced at some length after our heroes escape aboard the Falcon, with Leia insisting their escape was too easy and the Empire had clearly let them go so they could track their route to the hidden Rebel base. However, the Stormtroopers' notoriously awful marksmanship in episodes 5 and 6 means that their, frankly, impressive acting skills aboard the Death Star in episode 4 are wrongly remembered as, well, more awful marksmanship. Number 9. Coruscant's first appearance was in The Phantom Menace. Wrong! For starters, the notion of a planet-sized city was in some of Lucas's earliest drafts for the first movie as the potential homeworld of the Emperor. Subsequently, this planet became Coruscant way back in the early 1990s for Timothy Zahn's Thrawn trilogy, a landmark expanded universe story where the New Republic was seen setting up a home on the former Imperial capital. But bleh, books? Boring. Am I right, guys? I'm not right. The expanded universe is genuinely brilliant more often than not. But hey, I'll satiate those among you who were expecting me to say it was in a movie before The Phantom Menace. Because it was! Did you know that the galactic Big Smoke Coruscant actually first appeared on the silver screen in the 1997 special edition edit of Return of the Jedi during the galaxy-wide celebration sequence? The fact that this shot of the Theed Street Party wasn't added until the 2004 DVD release leads many people to think that this is when Coruscant got its original trilogy moment too. But no, this shot is in fact a whole 3 years older than Episode 1. How about that? Number 8, original trilogy C-3PO is gold. Boo! Cried so-called Star Wars fans upon the release of The Force Awakens as they were hit with the realization that 3PO's gold arm had been replaced with a red one. Grrr, they shouted. Threeps can't have a mismatched limb, he looks ridiculous, what have they done to him? Well, shut up. 3PO can have a mismatched limb because 3PO always did have a mismatched limb. Gold leg, silver leg. Huh. Suck it. Number 7. The prequels were fleshed out after Return of the Jedi. While some elements of the prequels, including Jar Jar Binks and the Samuel L. Jackson stunt casting, were obviously conceived a good 10 years after the original trilogy had rolled out, you'd be wrong to think that Lucas had only thought up the bare bones of the prequel trilogy back in the 1980s. It goes without saying, of course, that a lot of the general narrative features pretty much wrote themselves as they developed in the original movies, including Anakin's turn to the dark side, the birth of the twins, the Emperor's rise to power, even the Clone Wars, which is referenced by Ben Kenobi. But the amazing thing is, dozens of specific details were actually worked out all that time ago too. C-3PO was always built by a child working for a junk dealer. The Emperor always overthrew the Republic using trade laws. Heck, even references to midi-chlorians actually come from Lucas's very earliest plans for the wider saga, written in the immediate aftermath of Episode 4's phenomenal release. The more you know. Number 6. The alien languages are all made up. Okay, this one is actually really interesting. Now, it's already widely known that the Star Wars dialects are loosely rooted in the phonemes of real languages, such as the Jawas spouting a garbled mess of Zulu-inspired sounds, but you probably don't know that a select few lines of dialogue in the original trilogy are more than just corrupted imitations. A few Tatooinean inhabitants, for example, throw out phrases from the entirely real Quechuan family of languages as used in South America by over 9 million native speakers. Greedo's line, "Lucky I found you first," contains the word Chaskanyawi, which means messy eyelashes, while the Jedi Rock song features the words Imata Amunanki, which means top banana. No, it doesn't. It means what do you want? Not good enough for you? Alright then, how about the fact that the Ewoks, no word of a lie, deliver several of their lines in coherent Tibetan, including one that translates as, "There is lots of money here, there is lots of money here." Now don't say I don't teach you anything. Number 5. Jedi Knights are sworn to celibacy. This fallacy is based on 2 component parts. Number 1, Jedi are essentially magical sword-wielding space monks, and monks are celibate, right? That's just fact. And number 2, Annie and Padme spend all their time sneaking around, hiding their pregnancy, kissing in the shadows. Insert cheap joke about sand here. So surely, this is proof of Jedi abstinence. And yeah, sure, Anakin absolutely should not be falling madly in love with this woman 5 years his senior, with the sexy torn shirt and the slightly dodgy moral compass that allows her to conceive twins with a man who admitted to slaughtering baby Tuskens a whole film earlier. However, it's specifically this love and attachment that Anakin is trying to keep quiet, because George Lucas has stated in a BBC interview that Jedi are merely forbidden from forming intimate attachments. There is absolutely nothing that prevents them from having casual, meaningless sex with someone they don't love, which is good or bad, I guess? I don't know. Your move, Catholic Church. Number 4, 12 parsecs makes no sense. A parsec is a measure of distance, not time. The notion of being able to make the so-called Kessel Run in less than 12 parsecs, therefore, is apparently a big continuity mistake, right? Well, for starters, even that is a long and almost unanswerable debate. It seems at first sight that it was just a genuine boo-boo on the part of George Lucas's scriptwriting skills for sure. But then the 4th draft of Star Wars actually features a bemused look from Obi-Wan, who decides that Solo is just overselling his ship by trying to bamboozle the pair with senseless space terminology that doesn't work in the context. Mistake or not though, the line that did indeed go out in the final version of the film has actually been given some genuine contextual meaning in the expanded universe, so it does indeed make some sense now. The Kessel Run isn't actually a conventional A to B direct trade route, but a smuggler's hyperlane used to avoid Imperial ships by going close to a cluster of black holes called the Maw. It's conventionally 18 parsecs, but thanks to Han's savvy piloting skills and the Millennium Falcon's fast engine, he's able to go in closer to the dangerous gravitational forces of the Maw and thus shave off over 6 parsecs from the standard distance travelled. Oh, she's fast enough for you, old man. Number 3, Han Solo was almost killed off in Episode 6. No, he wasn't. While both Harrison Ford and writer Lawrence Kasdan were huge proponents of this idea and still talk about it on chat shows today, the fact is, Lucas was having none of it from the word go. He never even entertained the idea. True, there is some reason to believe that one of the reasons he froze Solo in Carbonite in Episode 5 is that he was unsure if Harrison Ford would even come back for another movie, but once he was signed up for 6, old George had absolutely no intention of reviving the character only to bump him off again. Frankly, Han Solo was just too popular and too marketable to be killed off, and the film was always intended to be kept relatively light in tone. Number 2, Episode 6 was originally called Revenge of the Jedi. No, it was not. This is one that will even blow the minds of some pretty dedicated fans out there. Will tell you that Lucas only changed the name of Episode 6 to Return of the Jedi at the very last minute because he decided that revenge was a word that didn't really fit with the peaceful Jedi doctrine. But that is only half correct. Sure, for a long time the film was indeed being marketed as Revenge rather than Return, and the change was made to suit the goody two-shoes nature of the Jedi Order, but the truth is, the original title was always Return of the Jedi. According to the Empire of Dreams documentary about the making of the original trilogy, the screenplay, which was co-written by Lawrence Kasdan, was based on a narrative that George Lucas had already sketched out under the name Return of the Jedi since day one. Kasdan claims he told Lucas that Return of the Jedi was, quote, a weak title, causing Lucas to change it to Revenge of the Jedi before he ultimately took a complete U-turn only weeks before release. So, though it might sound pedantic, you can now shoot down your Star Warsy friends when they tell you that Episode 6 was, quote, originally called Revenge of the Jedi. The truth is, it started life as Return, went through a slightly grungy revenge phase in its adolescence, but then emerged in full form as Return again in 1983. And number 1, Luke, I am your father. It's utterly amazing how one of cinema's most quoted lines can also be the single most misquoted line of all time. Grab your phone right now and ask your dad what Vader says in this scene. Ask your sister, ask your brother, ask your best friend. An inordinate number of people will tell you what they've been saying for years. Luke, I am your father. But that is simply wrong. And now you can send them straight to this video and blow their tiny minds with the news that they should have in fact been saying,
No, I am your father.
Okay, it's a subtle difference, but come on, it's the biggest twist in cinema and one of the most widely recognised pop culture references of all time, so everyone should be getting the line right. In fact, it's high time it was on the national curriculum. It's probably something that I've been getting wrong all these years, so let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. You can go to whatculture.com for all your lists, news, and articles about Star Wars and other
Jedi, Sith, and everybody in between, welcome to this edition of 101 Facts. I'm Sam, and I'm here to talk to you today about the cultural zeitgeist that destroys all others in its path, like a hot Death Star super laser.
Hey guys, BuildZoid here, back from my vacation. I'm only in a good mood because I got this to stand up for like the intro, and it still hasn't fallen. But anyway, I am back from my my vacation. The vacation kind of sucked. So yeah, but now I'm back. We got plenty of liquid nitrogen. We got tons of hardware to play with, and this place is an absolute disaster zone. I mean, part of that is me and never, like, really cleaning up. But the other part is also I wasn't here for several days, so now there's, like, freaking spider webs everywhere. So, while I'd like to say there will be a video tomorrow, there probably won't be, because I'll be still trying to, like, clean the place up a bit. in theory. There's almost enough space on the desk behind me to start doing soldering work again, but and the desk over there, well, that's become a storage area, so that's not an issue. But yeah, I need to get a few more boxes to sort of clean the place up. So that's a thing, and I just clipped the freaking mic. It's so weird. It's, you know, out of practice talking into the microphone. Anyway, in terms of actual hardware that we'll be looking at, I have good news for people who like old garbage and bad news for people who like new stuff. So, a viewer sent in a GTX 480, so that'll be coming in from the from the PO box sometime soon. I don't actually know when. We'll be messing around with that. Other than that, I also finally want to get around to the GTX 590 again. That's sitting in a box somewhere. I think I might have a fix for like the super zombified 290X. But on the off chance that I can't get that thing to accept the AMD drivers, this is a working 290X. So this is the card I actually used to like figure out what I need to do on the other card, because believe me, I do not want to take all of those power boards off just to get to the voltage controller right here. So in theory, just cramming a signal down the power good pin, well, just pulling power good high might get the driver to accept the card, but I'm not really sure about that, because there's a lot of stuff wrong with that IR3567 on that card. So, yeah, but I'll try that. Is literally just hooking up a single wire from 3.3 volts and a resistor, and then to there. So that is probably coming. There's a whole bunch of PCB breakdowns that's like, just consider how many graphics cards, motherboards, and stuff has been made, and how many PCB breakdowns I've done. Yeah, obviously I'm not going to run out of content anytime soon for that. What else is there? Right, I got a Phenom 2 960T, which will try some 5-core benchmarking with liquid nitrogen on. I still haven't really benchmarked the FX6350 I have. There's an 8320E sitting somewhere. I could also rebench the 965 Phenom. What else is there? Right, the HD7970 could finally go for a spin on liquid nitrogen. Just need to fix up a few volt mods. Basically, as soon as I clear up that part of the desk and start being able to solder things without, you know, doing it on like the 10 square centimeters that are available at the edge of the desk, then yeah, we'll start benching a lot of stuff on liquid nitrogen. For people who are wondering about Coffee Lake and Ryzen, you know, Ryzen 2000, well, Ryzen 2000 hasn't launched yet, so that's far future. Coffee Lake has launched, but I still don't have a CPU. Not my problem. Nor do I have any motherboards. So yeah, that's great. But we do have X299, so we might mess around with X299. There might be some live streams. Actually, if I'm going to be putting GPUs on liquid nitrogen, they're definitely going to be going on to X299. Speaking of liquid nitrogen and GPUs, I've got 2 more LN2 pots coming sometime this week, I hope. So that should be fun to play with as well. So we'll test out I'll be getting a Kingpin Venom, which I really want to try out Kaby Lake again on that, because that pot should go colder than a Fusion. I'm not entirely sure, but it should. And then there's also and I'll also be getting one of those Kingpin Tech 9 Fat LN2 pots. So we'll be able to do maybe like a comparison of the Tech 9 Fat against the Raptor 4, but more importantly, I'll be able to put the HD 7990 on LN2. So we'll have 2 LN2 pots on that thing, and that'll be really cool in my opinion. I'm super excited to do that. So we're just waiting for the LN2 pots to turn up. I think that, like, with how much I've run Vega 64 with like 0 insulation on the card, at this point I'm pretty confident in my ability to run a card with like no Plastidip on the PCB. So it won't necessarily, like, you know, I'm not sure. I can't figure out, like, make up my mind. Should I or should I not Plastidip the 7990? So the thing is, I kind of want to run the 7990 in my daily system on the off chance that it doesn't blow up, because that 4-phase VRM is like, it's a really nice 4-phase, but it's still a 4-phase. It's anemic as hell. Yeah, the card's over there, so that's why I'm looking that way. Yeah, well, we'll see. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, lots of stuff to look forward to. Oh, and the GTX 480 will be getting an e-power, and I still have that GTX 680 lying around. So yeah, you know, there's so much stuff I could be doing. It's just I'm not gonna be doing it when there's like dust everywhere and spider webs and everywhere's a mess. So yeah, but there might be PCB breakdowns because ultimately I don't need a lot of space to do those. So yeah, it's good to be back, and I just wanted to make you all aware of that. I mean, I've technically been back for 2 days now, but I only got around to making this video now. So yeah, that's that. Hopefully, you know, this year I managed to put out more videos than last year, because the more garbage you post on YouTube, the more views you get, and that's just how it works. Thanks for watching. Like, share, subscribe. Consider do consider donating to the Patreon. I feel so awkward about doing that all the time. Anyway, that's the end of the video. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.
Every fandom has its theories, but Star Wars fans are on another level. Armed with decades of discussion and a mountain of detailed information and expanded universe stories, the Star Wars fan community tears into every inconsistency, every seeming mistake, and every tiny thread that seems to be a bit loose in pursuit of secret agendas, new angles, and surprising explanations for seemingly inexplicable behavior in the movies. While most of them don't hold water, some are so off the wall that they just might work. Here are 10 Star Wars fan theories that will change the way you see everything. Maybe Jar Jar wasn't useless. Almost nobody likes Jar Jar Binks, the bizarre CGI sidekick character from The Phantom Menace. Phantom has plenty of problems, but Jar Jar is its primary lightning rod for fan hatred. One thing people particularly despise is the Gungan's uselessness. He doesn't do very much that couldn't have been done better by somebody else, or does he? One of the weirdest fan theories about Jar Jar is that he's not a buffoon at all. He just acts like one because he's actually an agent for the evil Sith. There's a surprising amount of circumstantial evidence to suggest he's sensitive to the Force. His combat moves seem Force-assisted, and he waves his hands a lot when he talks. The perfect camouflage for hiding a Jedi mind trick. It sounds like a stretch at first, but the more you think about it, the more plausible it seems. Agent Robot and Agent Wookiee. Once a simple standalone story, A New Hope has gotten more complicated over the years, because it now fits into a much larger arc. Case in point, during Revenge of the Sith, we see C-3PO lose all of his memories, which explains why he can't tell Luke anything useful 19 years later in A New Hope. R2-D2, however, undergoes no such memory wipe. Neither does Chewbacca, who was last seen in Episode 3, right in the thick of the action. So why don't they warn Luke or give him more information about his father? Simple, says one fan theory. Chewie and R2 are Rebel Alliance agents. They can't tell Luke anything because they're tasked with getting him off of Tatooine and into the fold of the Alliance, without arousing any Imperial suspicion. They can't blab too much because it could jeopardize their important mission. Vader can't express himself. Everyone remembers the painfully melodramatic that Anakin Skywalker, now reborn as Darth Vader for the first time, yells when he's told of Padme's death at the end of Revenge of the Sith. It's one of the cheesiest moments in modern film. Or is it? One crazy fan theory holds that the silliness of Vader's cry isn't a result of unfortunate stage direction, but actually happens because his new computer-assisted voice can't adequately process all the emotion he's trying to express. We know for a fact that Vader's bionic mask changes his voice. He sounds very different with the mask off, both as young Anakin and in his final moments during Return of the Jedi. It's not a big leap to imagine that the software that helps him speak might have trouble figuring out how to parse an anguished cry. The scene is still unintentionally hilarious no matter which way you cut it, but in light of this theory, it's a lot more poignant too. Finn is in tune with the Force. Force users came from all races and backgrounds. Even Jabba the Hutt can resist a Jedi mind trick, so why couldn't Finn, a former trooper with the First Order, be sensitive to it too? It's not hard to imagine a soldier awakening to a new power after some life-jarring event. When Supreme Leader Snoke tells Kylo Ren that there's been an awakening, we've only seen one character do anything remarkable yet. Finn, who's elected to leave the First Order despite the considerable danger and difficulty of doing so. Finn also seems to feel the destruction of the Hosnian system from a great distance, similar to the way Obi-Wan felt Alderaan being destroyed in A New Hope. Only someone in tune with the Force is able to do that. He might not be the next Jedi Knight, but Finn very well may have more power than anyone expects. Qui-Gon Jinn, Secret Sith Master. Jedi Knight Qui-Gon Jinn is killed off early in Episode 1, and though we don't see him occasionally in the following two movies, he never becomes a major player after that. But was that by design? One fan theory holds that Qui-Gon was actually working with or for the Sith. This theory is mostly based off of his track record. It's no secret that Qui-Gon is not quite trusted by the rest of the Jedi Council. He did, after all, train under Count Dooku, who later went on to become Dark Lord of the Sith. He insists on training Anakin over Yoda's objections and leaves Obi-Wan Kenobi to finish Anakin's training before Obi-Wan is ready. And according to Star Wars legends, Qui-Gon once had another student, Xanatos, who also turned to the dark side. In short, Qui-Gon seems to wreck things for the Jedi wherever he goes. It's not a stretch to think he had an active interest in driving Anakin into the arms of the Sith. Luke was hidden in plain sight. Remember how Luke Skywalker was hidden from his father on the remote desert world of Tatooine? And remember how Luke's father, Anakin Skywalker, actually grew up for years on the same planet? How does that make sense? If you want to hide something from the enemy, you don't put it on their childhood home. Unless, as this crazy fan theory suggests, that person hates their childhood home so much they never go back to it. Anakin lived on Tatooine as a slave. He never liked the planet and once expressed to Padme that he never wanted to go back there if he could help it. Worst of all, it's the place where his mother was killed. The whole planet is filled with nothing but despair, hopelessness, and anger for Darth Vader. It stands to reason then that it's the last place he'd ever choose to go, even to look for his long-lost son. E.T., also a secret Sith master? George Lucas and Steven Spielberg have been friends for a long time, so it's no surprise that both have included nods to each other's work in their films. The 1982 family classic E.T. the Extraterrestrial features a scene where E.T. appears to personally recognize Yoda, in the form of a small child who's dressed as the Jedi Master for Halloween. Years later, in Star Wars Episode 1, a delegation of aliens who seem to be of the same race as E.T. can be seen in the Senate. Most people would chalk this up to a couple of fun Easter eggs between old pals, but one theory holds that the connection should be taken seriously. E.T. seems to wield magical powers including levitation and healing, almost all of which can be explained by the use of the Force. And sure, he could be a Jedi too, but Sith Lord is much more entertaining somehow, as long as he doesn't force choke anybody. Boba Fett killed Owen and Beru Lars. This would seem like a stretch if not for the special edition re-releases of the original Star Wars trilogy. With the additions of their new and enhanced scenes, Boba Fett now makes a brief appearance on Tatooine around the same time that Luke is making his way to Mos Eisley. We already know Fett will do the Empire's dirty work for the right fee, and given his penchant for disintegrating people, Darth Vader specifically warns him not to disintegrate his Imperial bounties in Empire, and the vaporized state of Luke's aunt and uncle when he finds them, it's not inconceivable that he was given the grim task of torching the homestead in Luke's absence. Neither Sand People nor Stormtroopers are known to vaporize bodies down to their bones. That leaves everybody's favorite bounty hunter to do the deed. Ewoks eat their enemies. On one hand, Ewoks live in tree houses, have funny voices, and look like stuffed animals come to life. On the other hand, their resistance efforts are lethally effective in foiling the Empire's plans on Endor. Using logs, rocks, and wooden spears, the Ewoks help bring the Imperial forces to their knees. But before all that, we're introduced to the Ewoks when they capture the heroes and prepare to cook and eat them at a feast in honor of their new god, C-3PO. As silly as this scene is, it implies that eating humanoid flesh is not totally outside the realm of normalcy for Ewoks. Of course, C-3PO and the crew managed to escape their grisly fate, but looking at all the empty stormtrooper helmets in the Ewok village at the end of the film, we suspect the Empire's clone soldiers weren't as lucky. We'll skip the meatloaf at that potluck, thanks. Rey is Palpatine's granddaughter. Rey, the protagonist of The Force Awakens, could be related to a number of important people in the Star Wars universe. Fan theories abound, but our new favorite, suggested by culinary wizard and Star Wars superfan J. Kenji Lopez Alt, is possibly the most compelling. Rey is Emperor Palpatine's granddaughter. Think about it. The word Rey means king or ruler in Spanish, and the Star Wars series has always been known for characters whose names evoke the roles they play. She's also the only Star Wars character aside from Palpatine to use a stabbing motion with her lightsaber. Both Rey and Palpatine use the move multiple times, but nobody else ever does. The list of evidence is surprisingly robust, and it would make for a truly crazy twist. So, which Star Wars theories are your favorites? Do you know any even crazier fan theories that start to make more sense the more you think about them? We'd love to hear them. Give this video a thumbs up and give us your wildest ideas in the comments below. And as always, be sure to subscribe to CBR for more forceful videos about movies, comic books, video games, and a whole lot more.
People love the Star Wars. Some people love to hate it, especially the prequels. But pretty much everyone in this galaxy has something to say about this phenomenon. Whichever side of the Force you fall on, we're about to blow your mind with a brand new theory that's currently causing more waves on the internet than a windstorm on the planet Kamino. Now, what if C-3PO, the universe's most talkative robot, was actually a spy for Darth Vader?
Oh no.
It may sound silly, as the Golden Golem is seemingly one of the most non-threatening characters in the entirety of the Star Wars canon. But if you dig deep enough into the Star Wars lore and watch the movies with a fresh set of peepers, you too may realize that 3PO might not be the droid you thought he was, along with being a droid you weren't looking for.
These aren't the droids you're looking for.
But as we kept digging deeper into this Sarlacc pit, we realized there may be some validity to this new theory after all. Before you dismiss the idea as insane, let us lay out the details as we know them so you can make your own decision. CBR is bringing you the videos you want to see with the characters you love. Don't be the last person in your social circle to learn the secrets about your favorite characters. Subscribe now, you won't be disappointed.
I feel so helpless.
Sinister Shutdown? Perhaps the first instance of C-3PO showing his sinister side began earlier than you ever realized. George Lucas had intended 3PO and R2-D2 to be central characters in the world he was creating, which explains their pivotal role in the beginning of the first Star Wars film he made, A New Hope. Princess Leia leaves valuable information with R2-D2, and along with his bipedal buddy, 3PO, they end up on Tatooine and run into a family of moisture farmers on the sand-filled planet.
Take these two over to the garage, will you? I want them cleaned up before dinner.
But I was going into Toshi Station to pick up some power converters.
They meet Luke, who in turn discovers the hidden message Leia left, which leads to a crotchety old dude who explains to Luke that his destiny awaits in the stars above. While they're talking in Kenobi's modestly decorated hut, Obi-Wan pulls out what we eventually learn is his former Padawan's lightsaber. Upon seeing the weapon, C-3PO asks Luke if he can close down for a while.
Sir, if you'll not be needing me, I'll close down for a while.
Sure, go ahead.
When we'd first seen the film, it was probably safe to assume that the robot simply needed a relaxing reboot. It makes sense. When your computer is running slow, a quick restart helps it run faster. So it's safe to assume it would help a droid reset his settings or something to that effect. However, knowing what we know now, this sheds a completely different light on 3PO's actions. According to canon, C-3PO had his memory banks wiped by Leia's adoptive father, Bail Organa, when he gained control of the droid duo at the end of Revenge of the Sith.
Have the protocol droid's mind wiped.
What? This should have erased all memory 3PO had of any events that happened prior, essentially erasing all of the information the robot knew about where he came from and who created him. Yet, upon seeing the lightsaber of his former master, he ceases operations for an apparent siesta. Besides picking the most awkward time to shut down, it's possible that C-3PO was actually fully aware of who once wielded the weapon Obi-Wan was showing to Luke. A popular theory exists whereby Organa installed a Vader protocol along with a memory wipe, and at the mere mention of Kenobi's former apprentice, this would essentially cause the close down. But to us it seems a little bit unlikely.
It seems that he is carrying a message from an Obi-Wan Kenobi. Master Annie, does that name mean anything to you?
Clone Wars catastrophes. Long before he meets Master Luke, C-3PO knew exactly who Obi-Wan Kenobi was. During the events of Attack of the Clones, C-3PO finds himself on the planet Geonosis with R2, Anakin, and Padme Amidala, as they attempt to rescue Obi-Wan, who's been captured by Count Dooku.
Then we decided to come and rescue you. Good job.
After landing, the team ends up in a droid factory. 3PO's lack of dexterity causes him to become trapped on the conveyor belt, building some rock'em sock'em robots. His head becomes separated from his body, and he ends up fighting against the good guys as two different robots. One with his head on a B-1 battle droid, as well as his body with the head of another droid. While he didn't cause much damage, one must question whether 3PO knew what he was doing, and secretly enjoyed taking potshots at the Jedi Council and clone troopers. He was yelling,
Die, Jedi gods! What did I say?
This is just the beginning of C-3PO's time affecting the outcome of the Clone Wars. After essentially serving as the best man at Anakin and Padme's wedding, further cementing his status of bros before entire galaxies, the droids become an integral part of the story, as shown in the Star Wars Clone Wars animated series. The show is considered canon, and contains many adventures that find 3PO and R2 hopping across the galaxy with Anakin, playing an integral part in helping fight off the evil empire that is beginning to form.
Coming, Minister. Come along, R2.
Lowdown on Lothal. Just a few years ago, a new animated series was introduced, Star Wars Rebels. The show is considered official canon, and takes place after Episode 3 and before Episode 4, showing what was happening to characters new and old as the Galactic Empire grew. Of course, the droid duo of R2-D2 and C-3PO made their way onto the show, as they have appeared in almost every form of media within Star Wars canon or legends.
I am C-3PO, and this is my counterpart, R2-D2.
During their introduction to the show, 3PO and R2 are sent by their current master, Bail Organa, on an escort mission to the planet Gorel. They end up on Lothal, a weapon manufacturing base for the Empire. As it seemingly always happens to the talkative and clumsy droid, he ends up in the wrong place at the wrong time, and is eventually captured by Lothal rebels. While the true details of the mission were kept from 3PO, probably because of his inability to ever shut up, as soon as trouble began and he found his robotic back against the wall, his reaction was to contact Imperial authorities to come rescue him.
All I need is your location.
Sending our coordinates now.
It ends up working to the rebels' favor, however, and C-3PO manages to escape with his parts intact. But why would his instinct be to contact the bad guys who he's been working against since his memory wipe? He's been living and serving Organa, a man who has an extreme dislike of the evil empire, so he should know that Imperial equals bad, unless the part of his memories were beginning to come back.
This entire ordeal has rather stressed every one of my circuits. Permission to shut down?
Granted.
These stories exist before he meets Luke on Tatooine, and if he has even the slightest remembrance of the young boy who created him, it's possible his allegiance is in question.
Thank the Maker. This oil bath is going to feel so good.
Thank the Maker. As Luke Skywalker was helping C-3PO settle into a hot lubrication bath in A New Hope, the robot gleefully yelled, "Thank the Maker!" as he was settling into a steaming oil bath in hopes of removing some dust that had been contaminating his bolts and nuts. At the time, the line seemed a bit of a throwaway, maybe an allegory for a higher power that existed within the galaxies that George Lucas had created.
Kid, I've flown from one side of this galaxy to the other. I've seen a lot of strange stuff, but I've never seen anything to make me believe there's one all-powerful force controlling everything. There's no mystical energy field controls my destiny.
Even though 3PO's components were created on the planet Alpha over a century before his construction, The Phantom Menace makes it clear who actually put C-3PO back together again.
R2-D2, a pleasure to meet you. I am C-3PO.
In The Phantom Menace, we learn that Anakin, long before he'd showed off his affinity for an all-black wardrobe, was responsible for putting together the version of C-3PO everyone knows and loves today. At some point, his life fell to pieces, literally, and those pieces found themselves in an intergalactic junkyard on the desert planet of Tatooine. Anakin found those pieces and reconstructed the robot, modifying it to withstand the extreme heat and sand of the planet. C-3PO served the Skywalkers well, helping with chores around the house and developing a relationship with Anakin and his mother Shmi. Remember kids, if you don't want to do the dishes, build a robot to do them for you. After having run into Qui-Gon Jinn, Padme Amidala, Jar Jar Binks, and R2-D2 at Watto's shop, Anakin's life began down a different path, a much darker one. Anakin's Jedi calling leads the young lad to leave his home. Apparently, the kid had an extremely high midi-chlorian count, which sounds like he needed a space doctor more than a dude in flowing robes with a fancy flashlight as a weapon. As he leaves, he makes his mother promise not to sell his buddy that he built, the machine he made.
The Maker of Master Annie.
C-3PO will run into Anakin many more times before his heel turn, but the events on Tatooine are the building blocks of this theory. The Maker does exist in Star Wars canon. Also called the One Who Creates, the Maker is often referred to as a deity-like being that supposedly created the very first droid, changing them from machines designed to do manual labor to creations with personality. Since it seemed curious that the droids would remember the Maker, fans began speculating early on who exactly made C-3PO, since he uses the line several times throughout the original trilogy, including when Lando informs everyone that Han Solo survived the carbonite freezing process in Empire Strikes Back. At the time, most assumed 3PO was simply expressing his gratitude in Master Solo still being alive. But as more Star Wars movies, books, and video games were made, the line kept being repeated, including most recently in The Force Awakens. People began to wonder if the robot may have been thanking the ones responsible for having Solo frozen. Darth Vader. These moments are revisited in Dark Horse Comics Star Wars Tales No. 6, a short story titled Thank the Maker. The 9-page story takes place on Cloud City, telling another angle of the events on Bespin. While the story isn't considered canon, it is officially part of Star Wars Legends. The comic reveals that Darth Vader may not have let all his past go after he embraced the dark side, as he finds himself suddenly flooded by memories of his time building the droid on planet Tatooine. As seen in Empire, 3PO has found himself fallen to pieces again, and about to be melted down by the enemy. In the comic, Lord Vader asks for what's left of 3PO to be brought to him, in case his memory banks might contain valuable information. Upon seeing the droid, the Sith Lord, formerly known as Anakin Skywalker, had a series of flashbacks, remembering his childhood adventures with his best buddies as they find pieces that would eventually become 3PO. After this memory, Vader refuses to have the droid destroyed. The comic manages to show off Vader's soft side, including a touching panel of Vader resting his forehead against the head of 3PO. It's pretty obvious that Anakin still holds a soft spot for his former creation and compadre. It would seem safe to assume the feeling was mutual. Wow, that's more to digest than a Sarlacc pit trying to devour Boba Fett.
Surrender is a perfectly acceptable alternative in extreme circumstances. The Empire may be gracious enough.
Thank you.
Now that you've heard the evidence, what do you think? Was C-3PO a secret spy the whole time, or just a doofus droid who stumbled his way across the universe? Let us know your thoughts or theories in the comments below. If you want to be among the first to watch more videos and tear away at the very fabric of your childhood, be sure to subscribe to CBR's channel. Oh, and don't forget to like and share this video. This is going to be a topic that will be debated among Star Wars fans for quite some time. So as always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.
weapons free.
Scratch one more.
RTXD ready for launch.
Planting Claymore.
Friendly RCXD inbound.
In there, we already found ourselves in a little cavern.
Enemy down.
UAV on standby.
Let's go, let's go. Gun down.
Friendly UAV inbound. Hardpoint identified.
Let's go, let's go. I've got you. That's a kill.
Hardpoint is ours.
Changing.
We've lost control.
Contact. Threat neutralized.
Hardpoint identified.
Hey, if you hurry, you can catch the special vendor. It's a great opportunity to build up your car collection.
Quite a while ago, I was browsing the internet, and this was right after the release of Star Wars The Force Awakens, and so there were Star Wars related articles, pictures, and videos all over the place. One of the clips that caught my eye showed the opera scene in Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. See if you can tell what this video is pointing at.
He taught his apprentice everything he knew. Then his apprentice killed him in his sleep.
Ah, man. Just by watching that clip, we should all agree that Star Wars is completely ruined by the sloppy visual effects and poor editing choices made by the editors, right? Wait, what do you mean you have no idea what I'm talking about? Didn't you see Hayden Christensen's face morph halfway through one of the shots? Watch his head closely, right here. His head changes from one version to another with a little bit of a shape morph. Now, it's possible that even now that I've pointed it out, there are still some of you that don't see what I'm talking about, and if you're one of these people, just watch it a few more times until you get it. When I first found this clip online, I was fascinated by it. As someone who spends a lot of his time editing videos, I love seeing small moments in motion pictures that aren't what we might expect in Hollywood-level editing. Whether this is small continuity mistakes or big mistakes in editing, I love learning about them. However, a lot of people that saw this clip didn't share the same lighthearted opinion. There are quite a few people that were angry at this clip, focusing most of their rage at the mastermind behind it all, George Lucas. And let's be honest, it's way too easy to get mad at George Lucas for his editing. After all, he did ruin some good moments in some of our favorite movies, such as having Greedo shoot first, the Jabba's Palace song, and even CG Jabba himself. Fans were angry that he threw a bunch of CG changes into the originals and were unimpressed with the CG forced into the prequels. But how bad were George's edits really? I know that this is a pretty uncommon phrase, but I don't think that George Lucas should get all the hate that he does. And now before you grab your pitchfork and type an angry comment about how I'm wrong, just hear me out. Let's go back to the beginning. When George Lucas was making Star Wars A New Hope, people didn't think that he would be successful.
Most of the crew thought Star Wars was just a children's film.
I'm not putting down the British crew, but there was kind of attitude like, what is this?
When word of the various post-production problems reached the Fox board of directors, they decided they'd had enough of George Lucas and that science movie.
Well, my friends, we're very honest. I don't get it. It's kind of, what are you doing here? So that was basically the tenor of the whole thing.
It really looked like he was ready to burst into tears.
Industry insiders had been predicting doom for Star Wars.
But man, were they wrong. Now, Star Wars is probably the most influential series of all time. How? It's not because George Lucas did what he knew he was able to do, but because he took risks. So for now, I'm going to put George into the category of risk taker. And if he has an idea that he thinks will work, he has to assume that whatever people say against his idea is not relevant. After all, people used to think that he couldn't make Star Wars into a good film, and now they think he's a genius. Now, I'm just making an assumption here, but it would make sense as to why he had all the power over his prequels that he did. I hear people all over the internet saying how much of a shame it is that George was surrounded by yes men, people that did whatever he said. As far as we know, people only knew him as a risk taker and a genius. And so while the editors might not have shared the same opinions about how the movie should have been made, they went along with whatever George said because he was the creator of Star Wars. Take a step back and think about what I've just said. Hopefully you'll notice the contrast between how he used to be perceived and how people view him now. Nowadays, people think about him more as the person that ruined Star Wars more than the person that created Star Wars. Back then, they only knew him as a genius. That was until the prequels happened. Here's a clip of George Lucas and his editor, Ben Burtt, working on a scene in Episode 1.
What's the worst of it?
That's going to be tricky. So what I want to do is, we'll leave this for the time being. We'll create this other shot, and then if this other shot works, we'll come back to this shot, take Panaka, slip him out of sync so he doesn't start to move. There, just go forward.
What's the worst of it?
I want to get just the tail end of it.
Where's right after lunch?
Yeah, I'd say 2 o'clock.
Okay.
I'll be back in a couple hours.
Okay.
It looks to me like Ben Burtt was overwhelmed and maybe a little bit frustrated with what George Lucas was doing. Now, whether this is because he wasn't sure of what George Lucas was doing or he was just tired of editing, I think it's safe to assume that there were some edits going on that most people might think were not completely necessary. Even using the example from this clip, all he's doing is making Captain Panaka sit down at a different time. I'm not saying that a disagreement between the director and the editor is a telltale sign that the film is not going to be good. Actually, if there was no disagreement at all, that would be super weird. This happens all the time, and it should. Here's a clip showing how Quentin Tarantino and his editor interacted while working on the popular film Pulp Fiction.
In the beginning, he really doesn't guide me.
and then I put together what I think he wants. And pretty much we've worked together so long I can judge what he wants.
It was sort of like Sally's job to kind of like, you know, little by little convince me to bring it down and bring it down and bring it down. Just like, you know, letting me live with it long enough so I could eventually, okay, I've had it enough, I've seen that enough, okay, maybe now I can lose this part. Okay, so boom, now it's like here and now it's like here.
Finally, we bring it down and bring it down, and then I kind of brought it too far down, and then he said, we gotta bring it back up.
That's it. No more, no more, no more, no more. This is not a video.
We do that for 8 months. So intense. I see him more than my husband.
Sometimes I, you know, get annoyed with her for not reading my mind 100%. I mean, all right, you know, it's not good enough that she reads it 80% of the time.
Of course, these arguments are essential for a film to be made. Second opinions can change the entire feel of a movie. The opinion of the director might not be the best opinion, and the editor might have a better idea of how he thinks the scene should go. For instance, when Alexander Payne directed Election, he wanted one of his scenes to flow similar to the stare-off in The Good, The Bad, and The Ugly, while his editor, Kevin Tent, wanted it to be edited in a much quicker pace.
I was like, no, let's cut it really fast and build to a climax.
And I didn't want to do that. I thought it was cheesy and would call too much attention to itself.
And he just wouldn't want to do it. He wouldn't want to put it in the movie like that. So finally I said, I'll pay you $25.
And I said, no, let's not do that.
I go, okay, 50.
And I said, no.
He's like, no.
And I said, 75.
So he even gave me an invoice, and it says I owe him $75. So I paid him $75 to cut it in, and that's amazing.
You and me,
everyone, we are at the Enermax suite now at CES 2018, looking at actually a case that was showcased last year, but it's had a lot of overhauls, revisions, and is finally coming to market this year. And one of the revisions addresses a lot of the immediate concerns that I had, so I'll be showing that off as we go through the case. Before that, this coverage is brought to you by Thermaltake and the Flow liquid cooler. The Flow is a 360mm radiator with 3 Ring RGB LED fans. You can program the fans for custom lighting through software, and then of course benefit from the larger radiator size and cooling performance. Learn more at the link in the description below. This is the Sabre Ray. Enermax also has a couple of other new products in the liquid cooling division that we'll be looking at in a moment. The Sabre Ray though, so in the B-roll you'll see mostly the acrylic front, and I know what you all are thinking. It's what I was thinking when we reviewed every case that came out in 2017, and that's, how does it breathe? How do you get air through literal glass or acrylic? So they thankfully do actually have the front panel that can pop out. So you can push on the front and it'll pop out. And then the plan is, what they tell me, Sabre Ray should be shipping with 2 mesh panels as found on the top of the case. So there's a mesh panel up here that you can pop out like this. It's the same exact size and mounting mechanism as the front panel, which means that you could swap them. So you put the glass on the top if you don't have a top exhaust or radiator, and side shoot, but we found that that sometimes improves cooling performance if you don't have any top fans because it streamlines the airflow. But either way, you can do glass on the top and get mesh on the front so it can actually breathe. It's actually a metal mesh with just a honeycomb plastic behind it, so this is looking good. And if you prefer both to be mesh, the plan is to ship the case with 2 mesh options. So very happy to see that. That has been the biggest concern for cases for the last year now. So that's good. That's probably the thing that has made me the happiest so far at the show. So people are listening. For fans, it comes with 3 front intakes that are going to be the RGB. I think they call them TB RGB fans. They're all 120s. I think the plan is also to ship with a 120 non-RGB exhaust fan. The reason I'm saying I think in front of all this is because it's still technically in development. It's towards the end of the cycle. Should be coming out in first quarter or end of first quarter of this year, though some small changes could be made, but the tooling is basically done at this point. Other changes from last year, the lights last year I think were single color fixed. Now they are RGB, of course, and they can synchronize with motherboards. So there's a button on the top that synchronizes it with the Gigabyte board, for example, and that's really all it does. Other than that, you can manually control them if you want to toggle between. Another thing that any of you who have watched our case reviews would probably be thinking is there are 2 fans internally pushing that way into a glass wall. Where does the air go? So that's also something I asked, and the glass panel on the back side, it sounds like there is going to be an option to buy the case with a steel panel on the back. Steel doesn't breathe any better than glass, but they're going to punch honeycomb mesh into it. So hopefully if the honeycomb winds up behind the fans, which it should, then those will actually push the air somewhere other than recirculate into the case. So that's also good news. Pretty rare to see case manufacturers doing stuff where the cases can actually breathe now. So again, pretty happy to see that. That's most of the case though. It does radiators pretty much. You can do it. I think a 360 on the top is the plan. You can do a radiator in the front. It's got a cutout on the top of the power supply shroud to accommodate larger radiators, which is also a good thing. And then, I mean, aside from that, lots of fan options. There's a 5 1/4 bay. That's pretty rare these days. 2 hard drives on the bottom and 2 SSDs on the back side for your storage options. And that is everything. Got it. Okay, so that's the case. Inside of the case, there's a Lictech 2 cooler. So we talked about these a lot with the Lictech 2 TR4, the Threadripper version of the cooler. It actually has been a leader in our benchmarks for thermals and noise normalized performance, where we normalize for 40 dBA. So they brought that to Intel platforms now, not just TR4. I think there's going to be support for AM4 as well. And it's the same exact pump, so it's obviously much smaller. It's not Threadripper. Cold plate's smaller, but as I understand it, the impeller in there, the fat metal impeller, that's a pretty high quality one in the TR4 unit, should be the same in these smaller versions of the cooler. So we'll be looking at that when it comes time to. I think it's got some kind of LED synchronization or something as well, that it syncs with the motherboard and everything else clearly. So that's the main cooler. There's another one, the Fusion. So they have a it's sort of interesting. The pump on that one is actually located sort of branching off of the tubes. It's not located on, the block, the CPU, where you would typically find them, other than in cases where you're skirting around Asetek patents that are being challenged actively. But the pump block for that one, or well, I should say it's the CPU block, since there's no pump in it.
Hey guys, George here from Corsair. This is the Hydra Series Pro family of liquid coolers. They're better looking and quieter than any of our other coolers have ever been, and they're 100% Intel Coffee Lake and AMD Ryzen compatible. The Hydra Series Pro has better lighting than any of our previous coolers. The aluminum bezel has a nice bead blasted finish and feels substantial when you touch it. And even the radiators have been redesigned with a premium aluminum inlay for the logo treatment. But by far the biggest improvement is the reduction in noise levels. By using the ML series fans, which have a magnetic levitation bearing to prevent friction, you get way quieter airflow operation at all RPM ranges. And for the first time in Corsair Link, you now have a 0 RPM mode for our Hydro Series coolers. These coolers are so efficient they can cool without the fans even running on the radiators. So until you absolutely need them for CPU safety purposes, the fans won't even spin up. With Hydro Series Pro and Corsair Link, you can adjust and control fan speeds, but you can also adjust and control the RGB lighting, however you want. The two models in front of me right here are the H115i Pro, which is a 280mm system with 140mm fans, and the H150i Pro, which is, for the first time for Corsair, a 360mm radiator with three 120mm fans. The Hydro Series Pro is Corsair's quietest and best looking line of hydro coolers ever. You guys should check out Corsair.com for more detailed information. Maybe you can add one to the cart and put it in your next build.
It has a flow indicator in it. So if you're the NZXT N7 motherboard is an ATX board. It's using Intel's Coffee Lake line, the Z370 chipset, and we think we know who the OEM is. Talk about that at the end of this video. Before that, this video is brought to you by Lian Li and their 550X and 330 cases. The 550X is a $180 mid-tower case with tempered glass on all panels. It's got three RGB LED fans positioned in the front, each of which has a metal frame housing and an open interior design. If you prefer a cheaper option, the 330 is $100 and comes without fans, and is what we recommended most heavily in one of our recent case reviews. Learn more at the link in the description below. So the key features here are clearly demarcated in all of the board's images. It's pretty obvious when you look at it. It's basically that metal plate on top of the board. They're going for an aesthetics first approach, and we have the board. We haven't had a chance to look through its power componentry yet, but we'll get there after CES. So for the visuals side of it, the plate on top is kind of like the Asus Sabertooth boards. It is a steel plate. It doesn't really have any thermal dissipation properties to speak of, and it's not meant to. It's just for visuals. The M.2 SSD covers look like heat sinks, but they're actually not, which is actually not a bad thing. And instead, they are, for some reason, aluminum topped covers, from what I'm told. Not sure why, because the underside is plastic. So, not really a great thermal conductor, but you're not supposed to leave it there when you install an SSD. So those come out, and the SSD covers in general are kind of sort of a flawed idea to begin with. NAND doesn't actually like being cooler. You cut its lifespan down as you cool it, whereas the controller likes to be cooler. So doesn't really matter there, but it's all visuals on the plate. The VRM heatsink is not particularly exciting. It has some fins, but it's nothing like the EVGA dark fins or the Gigabyte X470 board we just looked at for its fin stack. It's definitely more on the visual side of things, and so you might need some direct airflow. The VRM, we don't have specifics on it today. We will after CES once we tear the board apart, but we do know from the marketing materials that it's a 15-phase digital VRM. We don't know the allocation of those phases to different components, how much is VCore versus VMEM. And we also know that it's using Infineon components for the power circuitry, or for the ICs and drivers and all that, but don't have full details on that. So we'll look into that later. As for the rest of this, they've basically succeeded in making a unique board in a highly competitive market, but motherboards are not like cases. They are very functional. So NZXT is trying to carve out a bit of a niche here, and whether that works will hinge on how good the board is in its core functions, which is being a motherboard. So we'll see how that goes in testing. For today, what we know is it's $300. It includes the RGB Q controller and the grid fan controller in it. The grid fan controller can do 9 channels for the fans, quite a lot there, and that is actually 9 separate, at least 9 fan ports on the motherboard, so 4-pin as it were, and that gives you a lot of options for fan. RGB just hooks into the normal RGB strips. Memory support's pretty limited here. It only goes up to 3866 megahertz, which comparatively for a $300 motherboard is actually quite low. We have some boards that we've successfully gotten up to nearly 4600 megahertz, so a bit lower for a $300 board, NZXT's argument is, hey, you're spending the money on the LEDs and the fan controller. It's not a pro overclocking board. You could buy an Asus ROG board around the same price if you wanted that. So different things for different markets. And again, it's all going to come down to testing. Core components include 2 full-length PCIe X16 slots, 1 PCIe by 1 slot, and 2 PCIe by 4 slots. A little bit anemic on the by 16 length slots. And from what we've seen so far, here's the interesting part. It looks like, and I'm 99.9% positive about this. Actually, I'm positive about it, but I'm trying to get some here. There is none. The OEM is ECS. So ECS is the OEM or ODM, if you prefer, for this motherboard. No hesitation in saying that. You can tell by looking at it and the BIOS and digging through things. So we'll see how ECS does with the execution on this one. NZXT ultimately did specify the board. They had hands in design. It's just they don't make motherboards. They need someone to make it for them, and that happened to be ECS. We'll be reviewing this board once we get back. For now, though, you've got the basics. You can find more in the article in the description below, as always. And subscribe for more for the rest of CES coverage. Patreon.com/GamersNexus to help us out directly. I'll see you all next time. Hey everyone, we're at CES. Hey everyone, we were at the MSI booth at CES 2018 looking at 2 primary products. One is a prototype. The other one is in front of me. That's the Z370 Godlike motherboard for Intel's, of course, Coffee Lake platform. It's got some interesting power design we'll be talking about. We've got most of the information on this one, and it's definitely a flagship. Probably in the $500-ish range. So we'll be getting to that after this. Before that, this coverage is brought to you by Thermaltake and the Flow liquid cooler. The Flow
looking